it's tied with how much risk you're willing to take, how much time you have, and what the goal is. So for example, saving that $200 a month, let's use that as an example. And you do it every month, maybe the 1st or 15th or whatever, right? So if the market's higher, you're buying less shares with that $200 a month, right? If the market's lower, you're buying more shares. So you're effectively doing it automatically. Many of you are doing it without even realizing it through your retirement plans through work, because it's coming out of your check, or maybe you're contributing on a systematic basis. You're not trying to time the market or pick the stocks. You've developed a portfolio based on your risk or what the representative told you to do, and it just goes in every month. You don't even think about it. And one of the best ways to do that is that process, because you don't worry about the market, you don't get emotional about it. You just treat it as a bill. Like every month I know $350 is going to come out every single month from my daughter's college account. Every month, okay? It's a bill. I don't think about it. It's done. I don't know what the market's doing. I just always hope that on the 16th that the market's down that day, since that was the weekend, it was yesterday, it's a holiday, right? So, but over time, that's going to build a lot of wealth. And the mistake a lot of people make is they don't want to do that. They want to speculate. They want to gamble, right? And that's not, and yeah, you might get lucky. And you know what? If you want to do that, that's okay, but it's got to be money that you can afford to lose, right? So one of the things we were talking about was risk tolerance, and I'll close with this and then give it 2 minutes for questions, because I know we have to wrap things up. Is when you think about risk tolerance, there's the willingness to assume risk and the ability to assume risk. You need to have both. So let's say you have a lot of money, but you're not willing to take any risk. Well, then don't, okay? Because you might be able to do it, but if you're not willing to do it, what's going to happen when there's a correction or an event? And there always is something, right? Always. We had the financial crisis, we had COVID, we had 9/11, we had the Iraq War, we had the Asian flu. There's always going to be something, right? When COVID hit and the market went down, out of all my clients, 2 of them reached out to me. Some other ones I reached out to them just in case. And you know, most of them said, I kind of have them trained at this point. It's like, yeah, we know. Leave it in, we're fine. We've seen this movie before, we don't care, right? So you have to be comfortable with that. Now the other side of it is, just because you're willing to do something doesn't mean you should. So let's say you just got your first job, and you got your first paycheck, and yeah, you paid your rent and all this, so you're like, you know what, I'm gonna take all of this, and NVIDIA's been going like crazy, so I'm gonna take my whole paycheck and buy NVIDIA, right? And NVIDIA's a solid company, I think they have good growth potential or whatever, but let's say a month later, you know, your car won't start, right? And it turns out that it's not the gas, it's that it needs an engine rebuild, and you need to come up with $3,000. And to get your first job, your first apartment, you have no insurance, no emergency fund, and no credit. But you have the money that you put in your paycheck in the NVIDIA stock. And NVIDIA just got some bad news about whatever. And every once in a while they get bad news, people overreact. You have no money. Your car is dead, and you need to get to work. So what are you going to do? Where are you getting the money? Meanwhile, NVIDIA, even though it might be a great long-term hold, just dropped 20%, because you've seen that happen, right? But you need the money today, because if you don't, you're unemployed. You're taking the loss, right? So it has to be, so even though you might be willing to do that, you should, because of your circumstances. So the idea is trying to educate people to do that, make sure they have the foundation, make sure that when they're focusing on their goals, that what they're investing in, what they're saving in, what they're planning for is consistent with that. And that's kind of the process in a 10-minute nutshell.